There's a new kid on the block, ready to state his opinions without fear of consequence. He is fearless. He is ruthless. And he honestly does not give a shit whether or not you agree with him or hate him for his opinion. This man is... me!
What, were you expecting someone professional? Come on, this is the internet. There's nothing remotely professional on here. Like I said, nothing remotely professional.
Party, 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 I wanna have a party. I need to have a party. You better have a party. Party, 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 you gotta party hardy. I'm gonna have a party, or else you will retard. Party, 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 the party's gonna start it. I know what got it, party, my heart is on the party. Party, 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 make me party. I gotta take an acid so I can keep a party.
Forget everything you know about logic and physics, because I killed them for this list. We all want to see some serious action in video games, so when we see a visual spectacle that completely defies reality as we know it, guys like me go, "Holy shit, that was epic!" Of course, then there are those people who are nerdy enough to care that go, "Oh, none of this is practical, this game is fake and gay!" To whom I have to say, shut up and take your nerdy ass back to science class. That shit is not welcome here, and it only waters down the experience. Now, if you don't know me, I love RWBY. The characters, the animation, the story, the freaking awesome fight scenes? Seriously, this is nuts! And since the premiere date of Volume 4 is rapidly approaching, I am super stoked about this fall. So to keep my hunger for this crazy-ass action, and in honor of Monty Oum and his work and what it has inspired and what has been inspired by it, I'll be doing a countdown of my top 10 over-the-top action games. Now, here are the conditions of this list. First, it has to be a game I played, and only one game per franchise, with the exception of ties. If there's a game you have played that doesn't appear on this list, I either haven't played it or didn't enjoy it as much as you might have. Second, the intensity of the action in the gameplay has to be as intense as depicted in the cutscenes and occurring in real time, so JRPGs like Xenoblade and some Final Fantasy titles won't be showing up here. Finally, the combat must take place in a 3D free-roaming environment, meaning games like Smash Bros. Won't be on here either, as they belong to the fighting genre and on a different list altogether. Oh, and one more thing. Due to my potential use of language and the nature of some of these games, content in terms of visuals might be a bit graphic, so viewer discretion is advised. I would recommend that you only watch if you can tolerate strong words and have the stomach for blood and gore. Otherwise, I advise you to go somewhere else. It should also be noted that this is my first countdown ever, and that, by nature, I am not a critic. I like giving credit where it's due in spite of what other people may have to say. And on that note, this is my opinion, not a fact. You're welcome to disagree with whatever I say, but please do so with respect and as open of a mind as you are capable of. And constructive criticism goes a long way into making videos like these. Depending on how this goes, I may make more. And a fair warning to the trolls out there. Dante, if you would.
That's what's gonna happen to you if I find any abuse or unnecessary roughness within the comments. Agreeing to disagree is acceptable. Malice is not. Okay, now that the obligatory introduction and parameters are out of the way, game on!
Number 10.
Lock and load, people! If every first-person or third-person shooter game was like this, then I'd play them more often. Vanquish is crazy intense, and is perfect for those of you who like to shoot the crap out of everything that moves. From the same guy that created the Resident Evil series, and developed by Platinum Games, one of my favorite developers of all time, Vanquish takes you on a fast-paced, action-packed adventure through... Don't you fucking dare! The story goes that Viktor Zaitsev of a Russian organization called the Russian Star launches an attack from Earth's orbit that wipes out the entire population of San Francisco. Jesus, this guy doesn't fuck around. His demand is that the US surrenders unconditionally to him and the Russian Star, or New York is next. So the president, who is a woman and in no way, shape, or form looks like Hillary Clinton, that's sarcasm, launches a co-operation between DARPA and the Marines to take back the space station in which the attack originated from. You play as Sam Gideon, an agent of DARPA who wears a type of experimental suit called the Rs, and a weapon called the Blade System, a gun that's capable of morphing into any type of ranged weapon that Sam acquires. The Rs basically augments the performance of the wearer's abilities, increasing their speed, physical strength, and reaction time. This is reflected in gameplay with the use of dashing, punching the shit out of any enemy that decides to get too close to you, and entering a bullet time phase, which can be triggered after a dodge roll or when you take one too many hits. However, you'll want to use these features sparingly as it drains the suit's power and can cause it to overheat for a few seconds. Thankfully, it's got a fairly short cooldown time, but those few seconds can be the defining moments of life and death. There are several weapons you can get throughout the game. You start out with an assault rifle, a heavy machine gun, and a shotgun. While not much, you can upgrade your weapons to store more ammo, either by collecting another gun of the same type when it has full ammo, or by getting an upgrade point that can either be dropped by a destroyed enemy or an ammunition crate. You've also got a few grenades and EMP detonators, the latter of which is extremely useful when you're surrounded by gun-towing assholes. But here's where the downsides of the game come in. Almost none of the extra weapons I found were of any use to me, causing me to stick to my bare essentials for the majority of the game. The only additional weapons I ever used were the rocket launcher and sniper rifle. I may not be great at these shooter-type games, but give me a sniper rifle in any game, and I almost always hit my mark. The weapon crates I mentioned earlier do not contain the same weapons all the time. They're randomized, meaning there's a 50-50% chance that you'll get something you either need in a given situation, or something that serves you no purpose. The gameplay, while amazing overall, can get a little too chaotic. With bullets flying quite literally everywhere, there is a good chance that you'll take too much damage from an attack that comes at you from off-screen with little to no warning. You do have a radar that shows you the location of enemies, but it's easy to forget since you'll be too focused on what's in front and around you. As for bosses, while the first two were amazing, they got repetitive. And by that, I mean they were the same enemies over and over again, with nothing unique about them minus the amazingly choreographed QuickTime events. But that was about it. The game only broke away from this once with a boss fight that was so fucking frustrating, wrapping it up with a very unimpressive final boss. These are the things that keep it at number 10 on this list. Overall, the game was fun. It had a very catchy soundtrack and okay story, though it did end with a rather unsatisfying cliffhanger. But I would definitely recommend it to both action game players and FPS game players. I sure hope a Vanquish 2 comes out sometime.
Number 9.
Jehuti, power up! Okay, before you ask, yes, this does count because it's high-speed robot action. Do I need to explain that any further? Okay, good. While it's definitely not the best game out there, Zone of the Enders, the second runner, has gameplay and action that earns it a spot on this list. Following 2 years after the ridiculously short first game, we join Dingo, the brand new protagonist who accidentally stumbles across Jehuti on Jupiter's frozen moon, Callisto, during a Metatron excavation. The Baram army of Mars then attacks in an attempt to retrieve the abandoned orbital frame. Dingo quickly hops into Jehuti's cockpit and takes it for a spin as he embarks on a mission to take down Baram and its leader, the demented Colonel Ridley Noman, who almost ended up killing Dingo right at the beginning of the game. Shit, that's getting heavy right at the get-go. Unlike the first game, progression is very linear, meaning you move forward in the game and never back. And that actually works pretty well. Controls are still the same from the first game, but with some added features, like being able to grab objects such as steel beams and use them as weapons. The same thing can be done with enemies too. And while it can get repetitive at times, it rarely ever gets boring. At least, for me, it didn't. As for the bosses, they're not great, but they're not terrible either. Actually, there were some pretty decent fights, one of my favorites being Zakat. Add to this is a catchy techno track that puts the last game's score to shame. The graphics look pretty good for a PS2 game, especially in the HD edition, and it has a much better voice cast than the first. Well, mostly. Actually, the actors for Ada, Leo, Noman, and Viola all returned from the first game, but their performances were much better than before. Not great, but definitely better. The script translation, however, is a bit too literal and sounds kind of awkward in terms of proper English. And if there's really one issue I have with the game, it's Ken. Useless as crap. Seriously, she made for a great first boss fight in the game, and she did save Dingo from the brink of death, mostly. But after that, damsel in distress trope. The Viola AI takes possession of her R-Jet. She can't operate the damn thing after you delete the vengeful ghost for good. She's more directionally challenged than the dumbest person alive. She's so incompetent that she can't even prevent herself from getting kidnapped by her commanding officer, thrown into an Anubis decoy, which causes you to almost kill her in the process, and she is super one-dimensional. Don't get me wrong, I ship Dingo and Ken, but her role in the game is completely lackluster. I'd call her a Mary Sue, but there's barely anything about her personality I find capable of that label, aside from her flip-on-a-dime rebellion against Baram. Oh well, at least the rest of the game made up for that one issue. But it's kinda stale in comparison to the others.
Ready to fire.
Number 8.
Kingdom Hearts 2. My first ever Kingdom Hearts game. And I loved it. Compared to the game's predecessors and successors, this game is the most combat intense out of all of them. Everything the first game did, the second game did much better. And although I did enjoy Days, BBS, Recoded, and DDD, wordplay, Kingdom Hearts 2 still remains my favorite out of all of them, and for good reasons. There's a crap ton of enemies in a single area for you to beat, with ground and aerial combos that are wicked crazy and awesome to watch. Brand new magic spells like Magnet and Reflect, some new and improved summons that are either hit or miss, awesome drive forms that let you wield either 2 Keyblades, strengthen your magic tenfold, both, or grant you all of your special moves from the first game, and team limit attacks. Oh my god, these were so much fun to pull off. And let's not forget about those boss fights. Woo, Nelly! I have no idea what these guys eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but I want me some of that. But to top it all off is the epic QuickTime events called Reaction Commands. This was the first type of game I played that had the camera cut to different angles during a fight that made this seem extremely cinematic. Like I was watching a movie and playing a game at the same time. For me, that was mind-blowing. The story also deserves credit too. A very deep and emotional journey with plenty of laughs, feels, and even tears as early as the beginning. And that voice cast. Epic win. To this day, I still play that game over and over again from beginning to end, just because of how fun it is. Why is this at number 8, you may ask if I like it so much? Well, I just like the next 7 better. That's really all there is to say. Don't get me wrong, as a Kingdom Hearts fan, this is my all-time favorite out of the series, but as a gamer in general, there's a plethora of other games that top this.
Number 7.
Come on, there's no way you can tell me that Vanquish was gonna be the only platinum title to show up on here.
You see me headed for ya, cause it ain't ever over. Unlimited resources label me forever soldier. And you gon' leave defeated, that's right, your life deleted. You see my own strength will never ever be depleted.
If you're one of those guys that likes to beat everything that thinks they're people to a bloody pulp, then buddy, here you go. Max Anarchy, or Anarchy Reigns, as it's called in America. All these years and we still have localization issues. Takes place in an alternate reality of one of Platinum's previous works, Mad World. Returning characters are Rinrin, Big Bull, Matilda, the Black Baron. Okay. And of course, Jack motherfucking
Look out, he's got a chainsaw!
K-Man. It's really nice to see these guys in full HD color, with some kick-ass redesigns as well. There's also a plethora of new characters, such as Leo, Nikolai, Sasha, and Max. Most people call this a fighting game, but that's a bit misleading. This game is basically an open-world, free-roaming beat-em-up with multiplayer as the main attraction. Although a story campaign is thrown in for solo players, it's not really that great in terms of writing and plot. But damned if those cutscenes weren't entertaining to watch. But again, repetition issues. In order to progress within the story, you must complete missions that require you to kill a certain amount of enemies, as many enemies as you can within a time limit, sometimes using only special items, and deliver objects. Completion will award you points that you will need to unlock the next mission, be it main or free. Boss fights are basically the same thing as fighting the computer in multiplayer mode, except it's mostly one-on-one and not a complete gangbang by trolling asshats. But on the plus side, you unlock the bosses you beat as playable characters in multiplayer, which is pretty neat. And although they have pretty much the same movesets, their respective murder weapons are awesome to see in action. And that soundtrack! Oh man! I'm not really a huge fan of rap, well, stereotypical rap that has no melody at least. But the tracks in this game had some seriously blood-pumping rhythms and lyrics, with one of my personal favorite songs in the game being Unlimited Resources. Hey, people who claim themselves to be professional, what exactly is your definition of obnoxious? However, again, just like with Vanquish, the action can get a little too chaotic. Not so much with the players going at each other, but with the random crap the maps throw at you from time to time, like carpet bombing, runaway trucks, black holes, and the occasional attack from Cthulhu. That's really the only glaring flaw I have with this game. You like blood? You like carnage? You like chainsaws, hammers, fire gauntlets, cyber blades, flaming fans, cold javelins, electric kusarigamas? Go nuts.
Number 6.
Heroes in a Half Shell. Okay, so this game has been getting some mixed reviews, so I'm here to deliver my rebuttal to the naysayers. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutants in Manhattan is the third game that Activision has worked on with Platinum to this day, and is created to be a 4-player co-op game with more open-world maps. You take control as any of the 4 awesome ninja reptile brothers as you patrol the streets of New York City and prevent the Foot Clan and Krang's mutants from doing all kinds of shenanigans, such as robbing the bank, setting off bombs, and I kid you not, destroying a pizza truck and or stand. Never, ever get between the turtles and their pizza. You will live to regret it. Graphics bring back the style of cel-shaded models, something that I haven't seen in a long time and I have really missed. And the art style is based off of the artwork from the comics, with a few creative liberties from Platinum. Gameplay is about what you would expect from your typical Platinum game. fast-paced and furious combat with tons of enemies, and upgradable and super flashy-looking co-op and ninjutsu moves that can do a zeta ton of damage. The bosses are also pretty fun and challenging to fight, each with their own brand new melee weapon. Well, in the case of Bebop and Rocksteady. And secret bosses that drop in for an extra challenge if you A, manage to get to the boss without getting a game over, and B, wail on the bosses through half their HP in record time. Whew! You're gonna have to bring your A game if you want to go that extra mile. Reviewers say that the whole open world thing is new for Platinum in this game, but they clearly forgot that the aforementioned Anarchy Reigns did it first. And while some of the maps are definitely open world, there's a few that are actually more linear, so don't be fooled by what other people say. And while I'm on that topic, let's bring up some of the things that people had issues with. Bosses are repetitive and predictable. In what way? They're not the same guys over and over again like they are in Vanquish, and they all have their own attack patterns. Although some of them are telegraphed, that does not mean they are easy to dodge, especially when they get desperate and enter their berserk mode when they're on their last legs. If you don't have fast reflexes and dodge when you need to, instant pulverization is guaranteed. There is no local co-op. While that would have been nice, there are really only two ways this could happen, and neither of them are good ideas. The first way would be a split screen. Not only is this a visual nightmare if you have 4 players playing locally, this is also a potential technical problem too. I don't care what platform you're using, there is a good chance that processing 2 to 4 different screens on one set could overtax the hardware and slow down the frame rate. I'm already hearing enough complaints about dropped frames through online multiplayer. And with all the craziness that's going on, it would be even harder to tell what's happening from the amount of enemies you fight, the bosses, and the staggering frame rate thrown into the mix. I mean, can you tell what's going on here? The second would be the god-awful fixed camera angle that never advances unless all players are moving in the same direction. You know, like how the self-proclaimed gaming masterminds at THQ did their stuff. And in my experience, that created more problems than it solved. There's too much pizza in this game that it made me hungry for pizza and order some by impulse. That sounds more like a personal problem you have with your stomach and possible eating disorder than something that's the game's fault. Aside from the turtle's HP being represented in pizza, healing items as pizza, and being mentioned a few times in the cutscenes, it's not a heavy focus of the game itself. April is an annoying commentator. What, did you lose your ability to tune things out all of a sudden? I swear, people these days give games a bad score based on things that really should not matter. Now, while I did enjoy the game fully, there are some issues I had with it. Out of everything that people have bitched about, I have not heard a single complaint about the fact that your HP resets to default at the start of every mission. That's about as irritating as it sounds because you'll need to grind it up through doing the missions and defeating the enemies. I understand that the whole point of the missions are to get you ready for the boss fights, but they really could have done it in a way where my health stats don't go back to square one every single time. Another thing is, once again, while the combat looks great, it's a little too chaotic to the point where it's hard to tell what the enemies are going to do. They do telegraph their attacks, but unlike 2 previous Platinum titles, the red glint that signals their attack is a little difficult to make out. While dodging does work when you do it right, the turtles will get dizzy if you do it too much, leaving you vulnerable. This is similar to some of Platinum's other titles in the sense that the characters do a stylish looking flip with some sort of recovering animation. And finally, the AI for your allies when you're playing solo isn't that great. You can give them orders to follow, such as attack, protect me, wait, but they still jump at the first sight of a fight when they're close to one. And you can't always count on them to hold their own, or save your shell when you need it. And when they do, your HP only goes back up to 1 full pizza. But that's about it. The gameplay and controls are definitely not broken. Once you get the hang of it, they actually work pretty well. The story, while decent, is nothing special, but then again, this is targeted towards young teens, so I wasn't expecting too much in terms of writing. And the soundtrack, while on loops for a good portion, rarely ever got tiring for me, seeing as how it kept up with the action, and the final boss was really fun and gave a satisfying conclusion to the game, complete with Platinum's signature Photo It's definitely not a game for everyone, but if you have the patience for it like I did, chances are you'll find it enjoyable for the most part.
Cowabunga!
That's what I'm talking about! Yes!
Woo-hoo-hoo! So epic!
Number 5.
Obvious choice? Yeah, maybe, but can you blame me? The concept of Asura's Wrath as an action game was definitely a fresh idea in terms of game design. And what I mean by that is that the entire flow of the game progresses like you're watching a TV anime drama. I'm serious. The game is made up of 4 parts and contains a total of 22 episodes, with opening credits at the beginning of every episode, ending credits at the end of each part, and hell, even bumpers for where commercials would be put in midway through the episode. That's mind-blowingly awesome! Throw in some intense gameplay and visuals, a combat system that's simple and easy to learn, different types of health gauges that have various effects, my personal favorite being the Blind Master, an epic soundtrack, great voice cast, glorious boss fights, a gratuitous amount of QuickTime events, and you have yourself a near-perfect masterpiece. That being said, it's not without its issues. One of them being the fact that sometimes the music can overpower the voice cast to the point where it's hard to understand what they're saying without the subtitles. Why did the dev team decide to not include separate adjustable audio levels in the options menu like most games do nowadays? I have no idea. But the biggest part of this game I have an issue with is you have to pay for the final boss. Literally. As a friggin' DLC. The game only comes with parts 1 through 3. Part 4 you have to purchase on the system's respective network. Granted, it's not much, about $7, and it comes with 4 additional episodes, but god damn it, Capcom, why the fuck did you have to make us dig through our pockets to actually complete your damn product? But here's the question you need to ask yourself. Is it worth it? Well, extra money aside, you get closure on the story, a final showdown with your rival, and... DJ, music please.
走り出した想いが今でもこの胸を確かに叩いてるから
There's also a few cheaper DLCs that have non-canon guest appearances from Capcom's Street Fighter series, probably for the sole sake of fan service, and .5 episodes that are done in the art style of anime. And that's pretty cool. Once you get past the fact that you have to kick in a little extra for the true ending, you'll be presented with overall satisfaction. I was anyways.
I will have my vengeance!
Number 4.
Some games are glorious. Some games are evil. But then there are some that are a mix between the two. These games I like to call gloriously evil. I don't think the phrase, hell yeah, has ever been more appropriate than it has been for these two games. Devil May Cry 3 and 4 are the best games that the DMC series has to offer. I would have picked one of these, but I just can't find anything that one did better than the other. Starting with DMC3, this entry added to the gameplay by improving the controls and the flow of combat, the camera operation, additional and really cool looking moves, more weapons that work differently from the rest, and fighting styles. Bosses were really intense. Even the first boss was a challenge. Although there was one boss I raised my eyebrow at, because I couldn't understand why it was a boss when it became a regular enemy, and one boss that I did not care about. This game also showed us the sibling rivalry between Dante and Virgil, and the special edition even gave us the chance to play as Virgil. DMC4 mostly revolved around Nero, the new character that was introduced, who has some similar moves to Dante, but overall he's got his own fighting style, some sweet moves, and that devil bringer of his is boss. Given the choice between the two, I still prefer Dante, but Nero is pretty cool too. Don't worry, Dante is also a playable character and a major importance to the story. He's got new weapons, new moves, and his 4 fighting styles return with one additional style you get near the end. Bosses are still awesome in this game, none of which I found frustrating or boring at all. Add to that is a kick-ass soundtrack for both games that really gets your blood pumping. Only problem is, the characters control kinda stiffly and even dodge stiffly too. It's not that huge of a problem, but it definitely takes some getting used to. But that's really the only problem I had. Everything else was great. So grab a sword and a gun of your preference, start slaying away, and look stylish while you're doing it.
Jackpot.
Number 3.
Was there ever a doubt? That's right, people. Bayonetta is awesome, and no, not for the reasons you think, you perv. From Hideki Kamiya, the same guy that made the aforementioned DMC games, was also the mastermind behind this lovely, lovely symphony of awesomeness. Of course, I would expect that to be obvious since the gameplay is strikingly similar to Devil May Cry. Almost to the point where it might be considered a spin-off if it weren't for the fact the stories are not related to each other. Bayonetta's weapons of choice are 4 handguns. Yes, 4. 2 she dual wields, and the other 2 she has strapped to her heels, giving her kicks an extra BOOM! Bad puns. But you also get other weapons like katanas, shotguns, and claws that switch between fire and electricity on the fly. Add to that are combos that, if pulled off correctly, can summon giant hands and feet to smash an enemy into pieces. Additional moves that can range from doing an uppercut dashing kick in the air, turning into a panther, bird, bats, a dodging mechanic that works wonders when you pull it off at the last second, and attacking with breakdancing? That's awesome! And that's not even the best part. The boss fights are huge, the QuickTime events are pure eye candy, there are some events in the stages that break away from the regular gameplay, has some majorly epic orchestral arrangements, references to other games that Platinum made back when they were known as Clover Studios, and it's way too much fun for me! However, the graphics aren't as polished in some areas as they could have been, and the story is a little confusing the first time you play it, but then becomes glaringly obvious after multiple playthroughs. The lock-on feature may as well be non-existent since it doesn't really work that well, and sometimes the QuickTime events can happen a bit too quick that you may end up pressing the wrong button and end up getting a game over. But that's not too big of an issue for me. What's an issue for most people is the in-your-face sex appeal that apparently drives quite a bit of people away from the game. Look to learn past what you're presented with, people! Gameplay conquers all. Stop bashing at things that should be minor. Not enough to convince you? Well, it should also be noted that Bayonetta's character design was made by a woman. Yes, I did not stutter, a woman made this sexy beauty, not some lonely dude in his basement, contrary to what you perceive to be as the popular belief. Once you get past that last nitpick, guts, glory, and enjoyment awaits. From demons to angels. Job well done, Kamiya-sensei. Job well done.
Let's dance, boys!
Number 2.
Fasten your seatbelts!
Autobots, transform and roll out!
Oh, yes! All of my nostalgia! All of my approval! A Transformers game done by Platinum? Gimme, gimme, gimme! When I encountered my first fight in this game, I knew I was in for a serious treat. Transformers Devastation is the best Transformers game that has ever been made. And for good reason. For one, we go back to the Gen 1 version of the Transformers, complete with more awesome cel-shaded graphics that work really well with their character designs. Most of the classic 80s voice cast returns, well, those that are still alive, with Peter Cullen voicing Optimus Prime, of course, Frank Welker as Megatron and Soundwave, Michael Bell as Sideswipe, and much, much more. Add to that is a fast, fluid, and furious combat system that uses both melee and ranged attacks, following up with ramming into Decepticons in vehicle mode, bashing them with Optimus's trailer, spinning donuts on them, and grinding them underneath your tires? I can't even find the words to describe my amazement. But that's not all. In this game, you take control as Optimus, Bumblebee, Sideswipe, Wheeljack, and
Me Grimlock wreck your shit!
as for Decepticons, we've got Blitzwing, Motormaster, Shockwave, Thundercracker, Starscream, Skywarp, and 2 combiners, Devastator and Menasor. This is epic! We've also got various kinds of weapons to collect from, including Optimus's iconic Energon Axe, Sideswipe's swords, the freaking Star Saber, and even some weapons that you can pick up from enemies such as Menasor's Ionizer Sword, and there's even a leveling up system that's not as irritating as it is in most JRPGs. There's unlockable challenges for you to take on, and extra difficulties to tackle if you feel like things are getting too easy for you, and the soundtrack! Oh man, the soundtrack! I'm sorry, but can we take a moment to listen to this gloriousness? I could listen to that for hours. But it's not perfect. There's no lock-on feature, making the action a little too chaotic to follow if you don't have the dexterity to move the camera around constantly. Shooting enemies in vehicle mode while driving is a nightmare. And speaking of shooting, the guns aren't that really well polished, with the fact that they have way too little ammo, and most of them aren't effective, save for the sniper rifle. Boom. Headshot. But that's it. And all of that is really overlookable, especially when you have the sweet satisfaction of ending a fight with a rush assault and going, Leroy Jenkins! Before we get to my number 1 pick, allow me to give credit to some honorable mentions. The Legend of Korra. Yeah, okay, it's pretty clear that Activision had a limited budget with this title, but let's face it, it's much better than the glitch-infested shitbags that THQ came out with. Mad World. It's raining blood. Hallelujah. No More Heroes 2, Desperate Struggle. I'm getting the distinct impression that Suda51 has a thing for Star Wars. Lollipop Chainsaw. Be the cheerleader, save the world. Killer is Dead. Yeah, the story in this made no sense whatsoever, but I was having too much fun to care. DMC, Devil May Cry. Just because the art style, redesigns, and writing sucks doesn't mean the game itself sucks. Drakengard 3. I really wish Zero would stop getting blood all over my camera. This thing did not come cheap.
Number 1.
Oh, yes! Hell yes! Fuck yeah!
Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Not only was this the first game that got me interested in the Metal Gear franchise, but it was also the very first Platinum game I ever played, and I love it! The action, the gameplay, the visuals, the music, the boss fights, the freaking boss fights! Oh man! If you ever have played a game where you have a hard time deciding which is your favorite boss out of the entire thing, then you know you have enjoyed it to the fullest. Some die-hard Metal Gear fans bash it for not being a stealth game or for saying this is a mix between Metal Gear and DMC, affectionately calling it Metal May Cry, to which I have to say this is a stand-alone game from the Metal Gear Solid stuff, meaning that this game is in a league of its own and does not need to follow the core materials of the original. Yeah, I can kind of see how some people would make the comparison with DMC, but this game is actually way more gorier than that, considering that you're quite literally chopping enemy soldiers into hamburger. This game is the reason I put a viewer discretion warning at the beginning. That being said, it's not like the game completely left stealth out. Sure, it's not heavily emphasized, but it's still there. We've even got the iconic cardboard box from the originals. Hell, even soldiers hidden in cardboard boxes of their own that you can hunt down. Damn, Snake must be an excellent teacher in stealth ops. I wonder if that would work in real life. And that's not all. There's also VR missions that you can find throughout the chapters and can freely try them anytime you want in the game. Coupled up with additional movesets, weapons, and stylish-looking outfits, this is a game that is filled with all kinds of gems that both bring something fresh to the franchise while paying homage to the original. And you know what else is cool? There are 2 DLCs in where you can play as 2 additional characters, and they're both completely free on both networks. Why couldn't you have done that, Crapcom? However, if there's one thing that this game has that isn't too great, it's the story. It looks simple at first, but then it becomes a little convoluted. But for me, that wasn't too big of an issue. I was able to understand the majority of it, but I think it might have been the heavy politics that got in the way of me understanding it completely. But hey, that's just a minor thing. Although I have played other games before that were over the top like DMC4, after I played through this game, it was official I became addicted to this kind of action. And I really, really hope there will be more on the way. Though, considering what Konami is doing with the Metal Gear stuff at present, I'm not expecting a Metal Gear Rising 2. How unfortunate.
I think it's time for Jack to let her rip.
Well, that about wraps it up for this list. So, what do you think? You got a list of your own? Hey, put it down in the comments. And also, should I do more videos like this? I mean, this was really fun for me to do, but I would like to do more, but I want to make sure that you guys are okay with it. And before I go, Monty, your time in this world was way too short, but the things you have left behind, what you taught and inspired, it has opened a world of creativity to me. The things that you have made have inspired so many people to go beyond what they are capable of and try something new and original. And it's definitely helped me take the first steps towards doing that. I don't know if you have the ability to see this where you are now, but if you can, I just want to say, even though we've never met in person, thank you for everything. And I only hope that you have a good afterlife, and that you were just as awesome there as you were here. Alright, now that emotional bit is done, I'll catch you guys on the flip side, and may Volume 4 of RWBY have a glorious debut!
Your world needs a great defender. Your world's in the way of harm. You want a romantic life, a fairy tale that's full of charm. Beware that the light is fading. Beware as the dark returns. This world's unforgiving. Even bright lights will cease to burn. Legends scattered. to